Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Welcome back to the Relay podcast. Usually, Shaquille is the voice that you hear, but I'm joined for this very special episode with none other than our beloved Dr. Hatem Al-Haj. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sheikh.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Sheikh, you're, you had a book called A Fiqh of Worship, right? And maybe a couple years back. And when I was in my college MSA, that was the most coveted book, Sheikh. Everybody was taking it from the MSA shelf because we only had one copy in the MSA, and everybody wanted wanted to have it. So, Jazakallah khair for all your contributions, and it ties in greatly to our topic today, which is on prayer. Prayer being the second pillar of the five pillars. And Sheikh, I just want to get right into it and ask you about the commandment of prayer. Why is it a pillar? Why do Muslims pray?
Well, basically, the relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the connection with Allah, God subhanahu wa ta'ala, exalted as He is the most important aspect of our religiosity, and it would be natural that establishing a routine sort of connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to take time out of your day, frequently to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Certainly your connection with Allah should never be disrupted. You should always be aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this is a time where you completely focus on Allah and Allah alone and your relationship with Allah, and you converse with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the prayer, because the prayer is a dialogue or a conversation between you and Allah. As the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, reported from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he said that he divided the prayer between him and his servant, meaning Al-Fatiha in particular, because that's basically the most important recitation in the prayer. Al-Fatiha is in the form of a dialogue between the servant and the Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. So being that the relationship with Allah should be at the heart of our worship, at the heart of our activities, being that a Tawheedic worldview is basically the Islamic worldview, would be completely expected that we need to basically take time out of the day, not to remember Allah, because we should always be remembering Allah. We should be always aware of Allah. Allah's presence should not leave our minds and hearts at any time, but to focus on our remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to focus on Allah alone, and to block out and off all the distractions that may affect our awareness, to basically rejuvenate that awareness, to renew, re-energize, and boost the awareness. So, there is a lot in the prayer. Basically, your soul's in the grind of life, your busy activities, your souls dry out and need to be moistened. You need to have this spiritual moistening of your soul, because competition in life, work, arguments with family and friends, and so on. All of this, can be taxing on the soul. And the nafs, or the ego, will basically overcome your good inclinations and your good spirit. So you need to combat that. You need to reverse that by connecting with the source of wholeness and holiness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when you stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask Him for guidance, and in the Fatiha, for instance, you remind yourself of your need for His guidance, that you cannot do it alone. You cannot basically find your way alone without His help and assistance. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, guide us to the straight path. We repeat this 17 times a day in the 17 rak'ahs that we must pray every day, although we should be doing more. Uh, and then when you bow, when you prostrate, you show humility to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You try to basically tame your ego and show humility to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And people who show humility to Allah will eventually, show humility to His creation as well. Uh, and then in in the prayer, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. Rabbi ighfirli, and you sit between the two sajdas and you say, Rabbi ighfirli, my Lord, forgive me. And when you pray in general for forgiveness in your prayer, and that's a reminder for us, like basically it's self-reckoning. It is uh, to bring in focus, our in the focus of our awareness, our shortcomings and our failings and failures, which are many, and to remember that we do need His forgiveness, and that we are flawed beings who are in constant need of Allah's forgiveness. Otherwise, this sort of the sediments of these sins that we commit by our hearts, our tongues, and our bodies all the time, uh, even if we're not committing them by our bodies or our tongues, we often commit them by our hearts. Um, so the sediments of these ma'asi will certainly seal our hearts and have like a permanent detrimental effect on our spirituality and our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So to say Rabbi ghfirli and to ask Allah for forgiveness with awareness, you say this consciously, you say this while truly acknowledging your flaws and your shortcomings and your aggressions, transgressions, which we all commit. You know, إنه كان ظلوما جهولا. He was oppressor, uh, wrongdoer, and ignorant. That's our description as human beings. So the prayer is a chance for us to seek forgiveness, to seek guidance, to reconnect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to renew our devotion, our commitment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to remind ourselves of our basically purpose in life, to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to basically to have goodwill for His creation and to serve His creation, so that when you finish your prayer, you have made like another commitment to be a better person and to perfect your work. If you will have to go back to work, if you're praying Dhuhr and you have to go back to your cubicle, for instance, between 1 to 5, I think that you should, if you truly pray it well, you should do better. You should be re-energized to do a better job. So in every regard, it is good for our totality of being. It's good for our minds, our hearts, and it's even good for our bodies. There are actually some studies that show the sort of the benefits of prayers for our bodies.
So Sheikh, a follow up to everything just beautifully said. Um, every religion can kind of claim that they have a form of prayer or a ritual prayer that goes along with their belief. What makes the prayer of the Muslims, the Salah, so different from every other prayer? And in particular, could you mention some of the wisdoms behind maybe some of the movements? Like you said, you're just touching upon the physical benefits as well. Just wondering if you have some thoughts on that.
I had read a study before. It came out of the sort of the Mind and Body Institute at Harvard, or came out of Mayo Clinic. I don't recall exactly now. But it was talking about, stress relief and the best form of stress relief. And it said that, like repetitive movements and sort of vocalization or repetitive sounds and movements. When you repeat sounds and movements in a certain way, that this would be the best form of relief. And not that we have to interpret everything from a scientific perspective, or that we have to always cite studies and stuff like this. It's clear that our prayer, if you look at the structure of the prayer, if you look at the combination of movements and what we recite in the prayer and what the supplications and the exaltations of God in the prayer, that combination, the power of that combination and the beauty of that combination should be obvious to people, even if there are no studies to support that. So if you look from the very beginning, when you say Allahu Akbar and God is great, that basically separates you from all the distractions. You are saying God is greater. Akbar is basically comparative superlative. So greater from everything, from all the distractions, greater from all pursuits, greater from my greed, greater from competitions and everything. So and then you start to, you seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the shaitan, and after dua al-istiftah, which is the beginning supplication, in which there are different beginning supplications, but the Hanafi and Hanbali beginning supplication is about the holiness of God, and it's about the praise and exaltation of God. And then you recite Al-Fatiha, which is a dialogue between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. First you are speaking, you are praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then you're basically acknowledging that only Him do you worship, and only Him do you seek help from, and then you present your requests for guidance, and then you recite another surah, and then you make your ruku' and sujood, and the humility that is shown in ruku' and sujood in particular. The amount of relief that people get from sujood, whether they are new Muslims, they have been Muslims for 40 years. When you really make sujood with devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it gives you immense relief. Don't you guys remember, you probably remember, one of the things that impressed Jeffrey Lang, he's a professor of mathematics who converted to Islam a very long time ago. And he said that when he first made his first sajda, he had immense relief. And this experience is, this testimony is corroborated by many people. This experience is something that we all feel. So I don't need to prove it to the people who actually feel it, because experiential faith does not. It's different from faith through persuasion. So I don't need to persuade you if you have had this feeling before. And then the exaltation of Allah in your ruku' and in your sujood and all of that. So this is it is clear how all of this can be a source of strength and a source of reconnection with the divine subhanahu wa ta'ala.
I think one question that comes up a lot, or one struggle that many Muslims, especially in the West, have, that's an unfortunate reality, but a reality nonetheless, is that whether they're new Muslims or they're born Muslims, a lot of them struggle with consistency in their prayers. A lot of them struggle with either waking up for Fajr or praying when they're at work, or missing prayers sometimes even. So what advice do you have, Dr. Hatem, for those Muslims who may not be consistent with their prayers? What thoughts or advice would you have for them on how to gain that consistency?
Maybe what we need to do is honestly speaking, people who don't pray, I would say to them, "Malakum la tarjuna lillahi waqara." What's wrong with you? What's the matter with you that you don't attribute enough grandeur to Allah or give enough reverence to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and respect? Um, so, like, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us, don't you think that we just need to show gratefulness? We need to show commitment. Um, if you have to show commitment, you should have to be grateful to your parents because they were the means of the means through which you were brought to existence. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who actually brought you into existence, and He's the one who sustains you all the time. Your intestines are working now, your heart is beating as we speak now, and you're not doing any of that. You're not in control of any of that, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. Um, so it is certainly unfortunate to hear that some people do not pray. But I want to say to them, don't treat the prayer as an obligation. Treat it as an opportunity. Treat the prayers as an opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to stand before God and to converse with God. you know, how like if you want to meet with someone, if you want to meet with a president or not a president, if you want to meet with your supervisor at work, you go through like a process. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is inviting you to meet with him, to converse with him, and he is telling you that he will listen and he will look at you as long as you're looking in front of you and that you're not being distracted. Um, so treat it as an opportunity and then give yourself a chance, even for a few moments during the prayer. Maybe you're not going to be able to do it throughout the prayer, but give yourself a chance to actually converse with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to actually feel the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to talk to him as if he is in front of you. And he says that he will be basically facing you as long as you are not distracted. So just think about this, just for whatever you remind yourself frequently during the prayer as much as you can. So when you say "Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim," guide us to the straight path, just bring this on, this feeling of Allah's presence, and and talk to him as if you are seeing him in front of you, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I think that if you train yourself to do this, and you train yourself to do this often, prayer will have a different meaning, a different feeling.
Definitely. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh, for that breakdown of prayer. I want to pivot to a different topic on seeking knowledge. And I wanted to start the conversation on seeking knowledge about your pursuit of knowledge. Was there? I think nowadays we find that many Muslims have their own kind of moments where they feel inspired or they feel like they want to pursue Islam deeper than just praying and just reminders. They want to pursue Islamic knowledge. They want to learn about their deen and pursue it in a formal way. Did you have a defining moment, Sheikh, for when you decided like you wanted to embark on seeking knowledge?
I'd be lying to you if I say there is a particular moment, but I was 9 years old. I was doing well in my studies in elementary school, and at 9 years of age, I was always excelling in my sort of studies in elementary school. So in Egypt, we call this primary school. I was in Egypt. And I used to go to the mosque with my grandfather when I was when I was in that in a village. My grandfather retired He used to live in Cairo, but he retired in a village, and he had like a mosque built in front of his house, and he would basically attend all the prayers. And he used to take me, and I used to actually enjoy the prayers. But I lived in Alexandria, um, and anyway, so I was not really frequenting the masjid near our home in Alexandria until I was 9 and found people who wore white and they had beards. Um, and they looked interesting, different from the rest of the people. And I felt somehow attracted to them. Um, so I approached one of them and I asked him a question, and he told me, "Why don't you come to the masjid?" And that's that was basically, you don't need to be given dawah all the time. You need to be conscious of this all the time. So not only that he answered my question, but he also invited me to come to the masjid, to the particular masjid that he used to frequent. And he showed me where the masjid is, and then I went home, and then that was after Asr when I met him. So I went to the masjid. I went, for Maghrib to that masjid that he invited me to, and I found a lot of young people who were wearing white and bearded and so on. And I felt at home. I felt very comfortable. I felt very happy. I never quit from that time going to that masjid. And they had a particular emphasis and focus on teaching and education. So I became involved, and because I was doing well in my studies in general at school, I also did well, and they encouraged me a lot, which is important. Encouragement is important. You see how Umar radiallahu anhu would encourage Abdullah ibn Abbas, and how Abu Hanifa radiallahu anhu would encourage Abu Yusuf, and how Abu Hanifa himself was encouraged by Hamad, his teacher. So, radiallahu anhum wa rahimahumullah ajma'in. I think encouragement is important, and this played a major role in my pursuit of knowledge and my journey, my trajectory.
SubhanAllah. I think, Sheikh, I think a good follow-up question to that is, how would you suggest or how would you guide someone who either is a new Muslim or newly practicing Muslim, and they come to you and they say, I'm here in New York, I'm here in the United States, and I want to embark on seeking knowledge. Where do I start? Maybe I don't have the means of traveling overseas. What's like the pathway? How do I embark on that journey of seeking knowledge?
Well, to be honest with you, there are limitations, certainly, for being in the United States. There are limitations. However, there are many good resources online, to be honest with you. They will not be sufficient. You do need to see scholars and to find scholars and so on. But not everyone is capable, or scholars are not always accessible to people who live in the United States. Some people live in areas where there are no scholars. However, the imam of your masjid will most likely, and some of the imams are scholars, some are not. But it depends on the kind of imam that you have at your local masjid or the masjid that you frequent. But even if the imam is not a scholar, he will likely know more than you. So treat the imam of your masjid as your scholar, and then you benefit from the resources that are available online. You may say that, how do I know what is what and what is good? In the beginning, you will need to basically find people who are trustworthy, find people who walk the talk, find people who have proper manners, and learn from them. And diversify your exposure, because people who walk the talk and who are well mannered can also come from different backgrounds, and they have different theological and legal orientations. So diversify your exposure early on until you find your sort of niche, or you find the school that you would be more comfortable with, whether it's theological or legal or Suluki school.
Sheikh, I'm curious from your
Have the
experience.
means, when you have the means to travel, then you will travel.
Hmm.
Yes.
I'm curious from your experience. Were there any characteristics you looked for when you were going to different teachers to study, or places to study? Were there any specific traits or characteristics you looked for in these people?
Okay, so it is important that you basically seek wisdom from wherever you find it, and some teachers may have suboptimal conduct, and that should not deter you from benefiting from them. But that's later. Uh, you know, Early on, you're depending. You're basically not very discerning, so you can't really tell who's who, and like accept or what is what. In terms of what is being um, taught. But you can tell a little bit more who's who by observing their conduct and their manners and their commitment to the deen, and their abiding by what they teach.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Inshallah, this will greatly benefit people that want to embark on that journey of seeking knowledge. The next session that we want to have with you is just a general Q&A of some questions that we came up with. So the first one, hot topic these days, how should Muslims navigate social media and online drama, especially maybe like when they first start gaining knowledge, they may start entering certain spheres or communities, and especially the online sphere with all these like all this drama between different sects or communities. It may be confusing. So how should Muslims, and maybe in particularly new Muslims, navigate this?
You should stay away from drama, and particularly in the formative years of your seeking of knowledge. And that's early Genesis. You should really stay away from drama, and and you should focus on your own growth and your own development. I mean, situational awareness may be okay, a little bit of it every once in a while, but never should that be your focus. You should basically be. And I am not someone who likes to bash modernity and like to bash everything that's new. This attitude is the wrong attitude. We Muslims should basically avoid that attitude, um, because many of these things have harms and benefits. Yeah, and wise people are discerning, and they should be able to basically procure the benefits and avoid the harms, and that's wisdom. So, social media, the online sort of sphere or realm, it has many benefits, but instead of following fights between people on Facebook and Twitter, go to YouTube. You will find you know series of lectures uh, on different topics. All Islamic topics, basically. Uh, so find those, and find the book, find the series that goes over a book, and find the book and study it. Balance your studies between the three between aqidah, and you want basically to have like in the beginning like a sort of a non-sectarian approach to Aqidah, where you just learn about the foundations of the deen and strengthen the foundations of your deen, your belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your belief in the hereafter, your belief in prophethood. These are the three main foundations, and they all come from the six pillars of faith, because qadar is part of your belief in Allah, because Allah is the omnipotent and omniscient. And the angelic messenger and the message and the human messenger, these are three pillars. The books and the angels, the books and the messengers, three pillars. This is all prophethood. So, if, build your base and strengthen your foundations, your Aqidah foundations, so that you have the right worldview, and then learn about how you correct your ibadah and your transactions, learn about the laws, that's fiqh, and to learn about how to purify your heart and to improve your manners, that is tazkiyah. That's purification, refinement. Some people refer to this as tasawwuf, some people refer to it as tazkiyah. It's fine, however you want to call it. I prefer the word tazkiyah because it's a Quranic term, but we should, when it comes to the word tasawwuf, we should be discerning and figure out what is right and what is wrong, because the heritage that is described as Sufi heritage has great wisdoms and great benefits, and there are issues and problems. Discerning people will need to figure out how to procure the benefits from that legacy, that heritage, and avoid the harms. So these are the three main areas. It's called Aqidah, Fiqh, Tazkiyah. And then you expand from there to different Islamic sciences. If you tell me where does Sierra belong? Sierra belongs to Tarikh, but it is a major part of Tazkiyah, in all honesty. The Sierra of the Prophet ﷺ and the companions, the history of the Prophet ﷺ and the companions is a major part of Tazkiyah. Maybe the best way to refine your character is to be basically learn about the Prophet and the characteristics of the Prophet ﷺ, the character of the Prophet ﷺ. It will increase your love for the Prophet. That's part of our Aqidah. It would purify your heart and refine your character. So it belongs there among the most important sort of sciences.
Sheikh, I wanted to ask, along the lines of what you just discussed, how the importance of manners. I've heard many great scholars talk about manners being maybe the first thing you learn with regards to the Islamic sciences. How important is manners, not just in terms of learning the etiquette of seeking knowledge, but rather like how important is it in learning how to give da'wah, how to call people to Islam? How essential is manners?
Well, the Prophet ﷺ said that the most beloved to me and the closest to me on the Day of Judgment are أحسنكم أخلاقا الموطؤون أكنافا الذين يألفون يألفوا, are the ones who are best in manners, and they can be easily befriended. They can easily make friends and can easily befriend people. Those who are humble and who can easily who can easily make friends with people. So and there are many such reports that address the issue of manners in particular. Um, so the thing that will basically uh, cause the most people to enter paradise is husn al-khuluq, is good manners. Our righteous predecessors used to say that, for instance, in Sufi heritage, التصوف كله خلق فمن زاد عليك في الخلق زاد عليك في التصوف. التصوف here is about tazkiyah, it's about purity, it's about spirituality. So they say that purity is all about khuluq, it's all about manners. Whoever surpasses you, or in manners, surpasses you in spirituality, in purity, in religiosity. Uh, so certainly the place of manners is enormous in our deen. It's enough to say that the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I was sent, I was commissioned to complete or to perfect good manners.
Chef, recently I saw a Facebook post of yours. It kind of ties a little bit about to the beginning stages of someone's journey, and then um, sometimes getting a little overzealous and maybe getting involved in some of this drama that we see online. And we should take your advice of just staying away from it. But it was the post on Ibn Sina. I was reflecting on that quite a bit. I wonder if you recall which post that was, but it was regarding your reflection of Imam Ibn Taymiyyah's statement, "I'm a clergyman, not a statesman," and how there's the importance of the difference between a
So
clergyman and a statesman.
the post about Ibn Sina, Avicenna.
Yeah, yeah, that post. You should probably talk about it more. You'd have a much better way
Uh,
of
okay,
summarizing it.
was it the same post? Where Imam Taymiyyah said, I am a clergyman, not a statesman."
Yeah, it was the same one.
The same one? Okay. Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but I do remember how I talk about Ibn Sina in general. May Allah bestow
Okay.
mercy on him. Yeah.
Yeah, it was you basically were talking about how uh at the end you quoted Imam al-Zahabi saying, "He who was declared an unbeliever because of heresy, regardless of its magnitude, is not like the original unbelievers or the Jews and Zoroastrians, those who believed in Allah, His Messenger, and the hereafter, and fasted, prayed, made Hajj, and paid zakat. Allah refuses to hold them equal to those who opposed the Messenger, worshipped idols, and denounced the laws and rejected the religion. Even if the first committed enormities, went astray, and innovated in the Deen, yet we declare to Allah our disavowal of innovation and its people." And you before that, you also talked about how Ibn Sina repented at the end of his life, and some jurists may have declared him an unbeliever, um, but you basically talked about Ibn Taymiyyah's statement, "I'm a clergyman, not a statesman," and the importance of how not all scholars are tasked with that duty. Um, but basically, my question is just, uh, could you speak a little bit about the importance of not falling into the pitfall of writing off great contributors, maybe people like Ibn Sina or people that we see today, especially when we are starting this journey of seeking knowledge. Maybe even new Muslims fall into this pitfall of completely writing off people, not benefiting from them. Just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Okay. So, so Ibn Sina, rahimahullah, contributed to philosophy, contributed to logic, contributed to medicine. Um, he was a Muslim who had contributed greatly to different sciences. He was like one of the geniuses in human history. So as Muslims, we should not really be so uh, anxious to excommunicate him. Uh, Now, Imam al-Ghazali, rahimahullah, and Imam ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, these are some of the greatest that we ever had. They both excommunicated Ibn Sina. And I just want to say that that does not mean that we condemn those Imams for what they have done or not understand the pretext of their excommunication of Ibn Sina. Because we would love to to preserve the honor and the dignity of our luminaries, but at the same time there is nothing more important to preserve than the purity of the deen and the clarity of the message of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it has to stay as he left the Mahajja Bayda. It's got to stay clear and straight as he left it. And um, the Prophet ﷺ said that يحمل هذا العلم من كل خلف عدوله ينفون عنه انتحال المبطلين وتأويل الجاهلين وتحريف الغالين. So this knowledge will be, or the torch actually, like the light. But he says the knowledge of this thing will be guarded, will be transmitted by the most trustworthy of every generation. They will basically defend it against the misinterpretation and fabrication of people of falsehood, and also alteration of those people of excessiveness, and the sort of wrong interpretation of the ignorant. Yeah, or as he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the main imams of Ahl Sunnah, they have a responsibility. They have never wanted to basically talk about people or to excommunicate people or to take them out of the fold of Islam out of tashahi or out of a desire, or they never found pleasure in this. This was very sour and tasting to them. However, they had this amana and obligation to protect the deen. Having said that, they act upon the information that was available to them. And when they are certain of the information that was available to them, then they base their judgment, which is more like sounding an alarm, like warning people against certain misguidance. But when the person is greater than the misguidance, then you need to warn against that particular person. When this misguidance is only known through this person, when the person is basically is the one who gives that misguidance credibility, otherwise it would fall apart. Then the person himself, you need to warn against the person himself. Do you see there is a huge difference between the two? If someone adopts a misguidance like X, Y, and Z, why do I need to attack X, Y, and Z? If they're basically adopting a misguidance that's popular, that many others speak of it. So what's the benefit in attacking X, Y, and Z in this case? I should address the misguidance itself and attack the misguidance itself. But when you have a misguidance that takes its credibility, takes its strength from the person, then you need to warn against the person. And that applied to this scenario where, certain things that Ibn Sina was thought to have basically upheld and promoted. Certainly, Ibn Sina was not like an upright Sunni theologian. was not a guided Sunni theologian. I'm not defending Ibn Sina in that sense whatsoever. All I'm saying is, you know, he may have not, committed this belief. And if he had committed this belief, he repented at the end of his life. That's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to tell people to go study, to tell beginners, like certainly advanced students will read Ibn Sina. But I'm not saying to beginners, go study Ibn Sina to learn about your Aqidah, to learn about Islamic theology. I'm not saying that at all. You should not. Of course not. What I'm saying is they may have based their judgment on premises that were clear to them. They are not as clear to us. And we do have some information about Ibn Sina that should make us more hesitant or reluctant, basically, to say the same about him as they did. Particularly the fact that in the month of his death, he finished the Quran 3 times. That does not sound like a disbeliever. Yeah, and also some of the statements that they have felt, some of his statements that for which they excommunicated him, they can be interpreted, knowing his philosophy, many people can find ways, and knowing other writings of him, of his, that explained those statements, particularly, for instance, about Allah's knowledge of the particulars. Did Ibn Sina really believe that Allah did not know the particulars? That's controversial, and there are writings that actually disprove that, and that would basically indicate that Ibn Sina believed in Allah's encompassing knowledge. So that's, it's a very long thing. I just want to say that I want to summarize this. Ibn Sina was not a Sunni Muslim theologian. Ibn Sina was Muslim and was a great philosopher and a great physician and a great like a polymath, one of the human geniuses that would make us as a nation proud that he was one of us. And he was produced, it was the Islamic civilization that produced him. Even if you were, Christian or Jewish or Hindu or whatever, thriving in a Muslim nation, then some credit goes to the Islamic civilization that allowed those people to thrive. Like if you were Maimonides, for instance, where did he live? In what context? In what environment did he thrive within the Islamic civilization? But certainly I'm not saying that Ibn Sina is like Maimonides. Ibn Sina was a Muslim. May Allah bestow mercy on him. In my belief. Yes.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. I want to be mindful of your time, so we have one last question that we ask every single guest that's on the podcast. And so the name of the organization being Relay, it's based on, it's inspired by the saying of the Prophet ﷺ, convey for me even a single verse. So we want to relay the message. We want to empower new Muslims, born Muslims, and the community as a whole by relaying the message and conveying from the Prophet ﷺ. Relay is also inspired from the concept of a relay race, which generally speaking has 4 runners, passing the baton, trying to get to the finish line. So a question that we ask every guest, and we would like to ask you, Sheikh, is who would you like to have on your relay race team? And this can be from a dawah perspective or really any perspective you would like to spin on it. But this can be anyone from Islamic history, any great figure in Islamic history, uh, except for the Prophet ﷺ, because that's very easy to say the Prophet ﷺ, and except for the Sahaba as well. But any other figure in Islamic history, Sheikh, who would you want on your relay race team if it was you and three others from a Dawah perspective, and why? Why would you want them on your team?
I think people who are familiar with me are familiar with my sort of inclination to Taymiyyah perspectives. So Imam ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, Abu Abbas, Ahmad ibn Abd al-Halim ibn Abd al-Salam ibn Taymiyyah, Taqi al-Din is the one that I have great intellectual indebtedness to him. And I think that his epistemology was truly balanced and guided. So his emphasis on the scriptures did not take away from his respect for the office of reason. It's quite obvious in his fiqh in particular. He wanted a reason to stay out of Aqidah because he said that this is not basically the right sphere for the operations of reason. It should not be operative there because the unseen belongs to God. وَلِلَّهِ غَيْبُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. To Allah belongs the unseen of the heavens and the earth. وما أمر الساعة إلا كلمح البصر وهو أقرب إن الله على كل شيء قدير والله أخرجكم من بطون أمهاتكم لا تعلمون شيئا وجعل لكم السمع والأبصار والأفئدة لعلكم تشكرون. And then he basically talks about Islamic epistemology, and he talks about this particular verse that tells you about all the Islamic epistemology. He repeats it 7 or 8 times in his books. Allah had brought you out of the wombs of your mothers, not knowing anything, and give you vision and hearing and afida, which would be a lot more than just the intellect, but it is the intellect and the instinct as well. It's the hiss al-batin, it's the inner sense as well as the intellect. So he combines between sort of the innatist and the empiricist approaches to epistemology in a very balanced way. Al-Halaq basically translated Imam Suyuti's abbreviation of Imam Ibn Taymiyyah's book in response to the logicians, which is he called it against the Greek logicians or something like this. But anyway, Radd al-Mantiqi in response to logicians, the book, that's Imam Ibn Taymiyyah's book, where he said that he emphasized why Imam Taymiyyah was an empiricist. That does not mean that he denied sort of the innate knowledge. He did not think that we were born with tabula rasa or a blank slate. There are basically built-in ghariza, or potency. So the intellect for him that we came out with as children is a potency. It did not mean that we had knowledge when we came out of the wombs of our mothers, but we had this potency, the potency to recognize that the whole is bigger than the part and the part is smaller than the whole. And some of the sort of the laws, the law of identity, law of non-contradiction, excluded middle, principle of causality, the main laws, and so on. But he wanted to say that when it comes to natural sciences and when it comes to the world, we should rely on empirical data. When it comes to the unseen, we should rely on the scriptures. And when it comes to the laws of fiqh, we rely on the scriptures, but use our minds to understand, to apprehend the effective causes and ascertain their presence and try to achieve the objectives of the legislation in different times. Um, I can talk for the rest of the night about, the main epistemology, but I want to say that, the reason why I am so impressed by him is that I am impressed by his epistemology, and epistemology is the beginning of everything. So if there is like an agreement in epistemology, like you find, for instance, his position regarding inspiration, divine inspiration, uh, very balanced between the people who deny, who are very textualist, and between people who exaggerate in divine inspiration and the role of divine inspiration, individual inspiration. His was very, very sort of middle of the way, balanced perspective. The divine inspiration is only complementary. The foundation has to be basically the scriptures, the Quran and the Sunnah, according to the understanding of the predecessors. And we have to use standard hermeneutics to understand the Quran and the Sunnah. But then he found room for inspiration, and he felt that inspiration is complementary. And he himself would basically read, he would say about himself that he would read 70 tafsir books to understand a particular ayah, and then he would go out to a deserted masajid and sometimes to the desert, the wilderness, to beseech God and implore Him for guidance and to basically enlighten him, just to have a better understanding of that verse after reading 70 different tafsir books. So he is someone who valued divine assistance and divine inspiration, but still, with regulations. It was just like regulated use of that concept or aspect. Yeah, so Imam Taymiyyah rahimahullah would be my first pick. But that does not mean that I put Imam Taymiyyah above all the other scholars. I'm just saying that that this is the reason of my affinity. He was Hanbali himself, so he would certainly defer to Imam Ahmad, and we all put the four Imams above the people who came after them and so on. But certainly everybody has like a certain affinity towards a particular imam.
So Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, you would have him on your team. If you had to choose two more, who would they be?
Okay, so if I have to choose two more, I would say, and that might be surprising because Imam Taymiyyah and Imam Al-Ghazali, rahimahumullah, may Allah bestow mercy on both of them, they, to people, they personify, they embody, they represent, they epitomize two different models, but the two models are all about Islam. They themselves were more well-rounded than people think of them. They were more complete, more well-rounded, and they didn't only epitomize those two models, but they epitomized the entirety of Islam. But certainly when people sort of think of Imam al-Ghazali, they would think of spirituality and introspection and things like that. When they think of Imam Taymiyyah, they would think of uprightness and movement and adherence to the Sunnah, resistance to innovation, things of that nature. Are these all different aspects of the same religion? Yes. We don't have to create a fault line or a rift between these concepts. These concepts complement each other. And, I do say to people who share with me the reverence for the Timaean model that we have to benefit from the Ghazalian model and benefit from Ghazalian emphasis on spirituality and introspection. And so, like Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, for instance, the student of Imam Taymiyyah, he was the most prolific writer in the area of tazkiyah and self-reflection and spirituality, manners, things of that nature. So his writings are certainly like, I think all of them are must-reads, and because they also bring the balance to these topics, sort of guided by the Sunnah. So anyway, so I said Imam Taymiyyah, and then I said Imam al-Ghazali, and you want me to choose a third. I mentioned Imam al-Qayyim, but if you say Imam Taymiyyah, Imam al-Qayyim, it's although Imam al-Qayyim was not really a copy of Imam Taymiyyah, absolutely not. That's a huge injustice that Imam al-Qayyim. He was influenced by him a lot, but certainly not a copy of him whatsoever. So let me dare to say Muhammad Rashid Rida, to bring in a contemporary figure that many people would disagree with. I personally would disagree with Sheikh Muhammad Rashid Rida on many issues, but I think that he is a very important contemporary figure because unlike his teacher, Sheikh Muhammad Abdu, who was also a good Muslim scholar, some people like to dislike him or love to hate him. And some people are just like that. So, but anyway, Muhammad Abdu, he was the first Mufti of Egypt and a prominent Muslim scholar, a good Muslim scholar. But he certainly, at that time, modernity or the modern world, the Muslim place in the modern world, Muslims were in a very difficult place in the modern world, and they have seen basically the West. They have seen Europe progress in amazing ways in science and in not only science, by the way, in culture in general, in civilization in general, in good governance, righteous governance, things of that nature. So it's not only like mad scientists, as people may think or like to think. No, absolutely not. In many good manners, in many good qualities, good virtues, and so they were trying to hurry to revive the Muslim world. And what's wrong with us? Why have we become so backwards? Why have we gotten defeated? But then I think by the time of Sheikh Muhammad Rashid Rida, he had regained some of his balance. And there are people who never react to reality. So they are in the name of orthodoxy, they basically live in a bubble to maintain their reputation as orthodox, but they never react to reality, and they never try to figure out solutions for the ummah and engage with the reality. And those people will always point fingers at those who are looking for solutions and looking for the best interest of the Ummah and how to navigate these difficult realities that modernity imposed on us. Um, so Muhammad Rashid Rida would be the third figure. Certainly, this is because of what I said, not because these are the three greatest scholars in Muslim history, because of what I already mentioned my reasons. Yeah.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Shakil,
Yeah.
that's an all-star team.
Yeah, honestly. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. That's an amazing explanation for each person.
So Sheikh, I want to be mindful of the time because Maghrib is coming. Before you go, we just wanted to thank you, Jazakallah khair, for your time. Um, we all benefited greatly from your work. I can speak as someone who accepted Islam that I would not be even on the path of knowledge if it wasn't for you. So Jazakallah khair. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and grant you the highest level of Jannah.
I mean.
And
May Allah bless you and Shakil, bless Shakil, and grant you the best in this life and the one to come.
Jazakallah khair. Inshallah, we will be in touch and we will continue to stay in contact. And everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.